Hey everyone, Rob here from Gunfather Milsim, bringing you my official after-action review of Operation Underdog, put on by Realsim, which took place October 14th through 16th of 2022 for those of you that are watching this in the future. Not only was this my first 40-hour Milsim, it was the first event I went to put on by Realsim, and they did a great job. I was on the green team, which was SKN, I forget what it stands for. We were supposed to be like the more rebel team, and then we were against the tan team, which their acronym was ROSA, Rosa. They were supposed to be the more like organized military team. And I was the sniper observation team, and my partner named Jose, 23-year-old guy. He's actively in the military right now. I can't say enough good things about this kid. He was phenomenal. He's an absolute rock star. Actually went the entire weekend without ever getting hit, which is kind of what the goal was for the SNOT team. I didn't take it as seriously as he did, but more on that later. So we first arrived there on Friday, October 14th, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I got to admit, when I initially arrived, I was not impressed with the number of people that were there. It looked real lean, like 40 people. And my understanding, they were supposed to be about 90. I'm like, well, where the hell is everybody? We went through, they did our gear check, did our chrono check. It was real cool, real casual. All the admins I met were real polite and friendly. And the gear check really wasn't that hardcore. I was thinking, man, we're going to lay out all our crap and they're going to really be harping on us, but not at all. We laid our stuff out, quick glance at it. You guys are good. Head on out whenever you want to head out. So initially, everybody on the SKN team was supposed to hike in all our crap, with our rucks and everything, to our fob, which is like 1.5 miles across the AO. And we were supposed to travel down the road. I was very skeptical of that, and the sniper observer team was allowed to go basically wherever we wanted, as long as we ended up at the same location. So we took a roundabout route that, although was longer and a little more difficult terrain, it was out of the way. From what we heard, those guys got ambushed quite a bit on that road, which was predictable. We didn't really see anything. We just kind of walked through the woods and hiked our way into the fob and made it there without incident. So when we initially arrived at the fob, one of the squads was there being taught by a cadre member. They were being taught like the basics of skirmish lines and advancing and suppressive fire and all this other stuff. We didn't have to mess with that. So the AO is called D-Day Adventureland Park. I've played there about 4 times. Real familiar with it. It's basically a real big wooded area with lots of rocky terrain, lots of elevation changes, and several towns and a bridge and all sorts of stuff kind of scattered throughout the AO. It's actually a really great place to play, but it's essentially a woodland game. So my partner and I, rather than set up our shelters, decided that we would go kind of scout the AO. We did this because we knew what missions we were going to have, or at least I knew, over the following day, and I knew generally what positions the command wanted us to set up in to observe enemy activity. So I went to those different areas and tried to find some good spots we could set up. That actually took a good solid 2 hours, and we didn't see really anybody at all that whole time we were out there. So by the time we got back, it was getting dark. I didn't have time to put up a tarp, a shelter. I really couldn't see anything with shit anyway, and I decided I was just going to wing it and just sleep in the bivy sack. So at this time, there was 20 players there. There were really not that many. I'm like, God, there's supposed to be 45 people on this team. Where the hell is everybody? So about 8 o'clock, 2 more squads show up. There's about 25 additional players, and they hiked in complete darkness, and they were all wearing nods, and they all had their gear. These were clearly the more experienced, 40-hour Milsim players that I had yet to see that day. So now we had our full, crew of like 45-ish players. And immediately, these guys set up, and they kind of established, perimeter positions, and there's 3 squads, and those 3 squads rotated through those listening posts or observation posts. And it was then that I realized that the main focus of these events is all about the night games. It has nothing to do with the daytime games. It's all about guys sneaking around with night vision, shooting the shit out of each other at night, which is cool. I mean, that's the whole reason we're there. Fortunately, I had a thermal scope. My partner, Jose, he also had a thermal scope. So we were well equipped to handle this. So about 10 o'clock, we had a real quick rainstorm. I just took my tarp, threw it over all my gear, got in my bivy sack, hung out there for about an hour while this rainstorm passed. And then right after that, we went on a night patrol. So the first actual mission we went on was to go find the enemy fob. And we did this at about midnight. We joined one of the squads that had lots of night vision, and we just tagged along with that thermal. Now this night op was a completely new experience for me. I've done night games before. I've never done night games where, hey, we're just going to walk randomly through the woods looking for another team. Luckily, I had a thermal scope, which helped, but you can't walk around with the thermal scope on. Most of the time, you're just walking around using your Mark 1 eyeball. Now, everybody else, like literally everybody else, had NVGs. So it was pretty easy to just follow them on the trail or through the woods. And then every once in a while, they would call me up, thermal up, because I could see farther than they could, and I could see with more detail. So about every 100 yards, they'd say thermal up, and I would scan, the path ahead, and I'd say, no, we're good. One funny story was we'd been going for about a mile, and they knew we had to be close to the enemy camp. I look up on the thermal, and I see lots of moving, heat signatures about 100 yards away. And it looks kind of funny. I call it out, and everybody gets down, and they all get online. Everybody's getting all excited, and I just couldn't figure it out, but I knew something didn't quite look right. And then I saw this head come up, and I realized those are cows. There was a field adjacent to the AO where there was a bunch of cows in the pasture, and even though we were 100 yards away, I could clearly see them. And we all got a good chuckle out of it, and then we just continued on our mission to find the enemy fob. So eventually we did stumble upon the enemy camp, and we get there, and they're all in their shelters, but they had some good security elements set up. And, we got in contact, and instantly everybody opened up on each other. I ran in the woods, used my thermal, engaged several guys, eventually got hit, and they pushed us back, but it was a hell of a firefight. My partner never did get hit, and he was actually a little ways back, and he ended up sniping an additional 8 guys before he retreated. It was kind of entertaining because I was sitting there bleeding out, watching the whole thing happen on my scope. It was kind of cool. But we were not successful, and we had to walk all the way back. It was a really good time. So we came back to camp, and the other 3 squads were on a constant rotation of observation post. Fortunately, we were a sniper observation team, so we didn't have to do that because we were always having to leave early and go do our own operations. So we were exempt from that. So luckily, I could actually get a little bit of sleep. We ended up getting raided about 5:30 in the morning, I think, by the other team. There was a miscommunication. One of the squads had gone out to do a patrol, and they see the squad coming down the hill. They think it's our squad, but it was actually an enemy team. So by the time the guy at the observation post gave the challenge sign, it was too late, and they just shot him. They threw a bunch of explosives into the camp, and they just basically rushed in. It was kind of cool. Somebody screamed, we're being attacked. I rolled out of my sleeping bag, grabbed my rifle, turned on the thermal scope, and looked up on it. I think I got out like a couple shots, and then I got strafed by some LMG fire from somewhere. It was well played. I got to give credit to the other team where credit's due. They wiped us all out. What was interesting is that after the raid, there's cadre members on both teams that they're all squad leaders, but everybody just kind of hung out for a while. They just hung out for about 30 minutes, shot the shit, and just had a good time. And then the other team members obviously just left and went back to their camp. They hiked back the 1.5 miles back to their camp. But the camaraderie between all the players was cool. How polite everybody was. How good natured everybody was. There wasn't a lot of bitching about rules and this and that. There wasn't nobody was salty about it. It was just kind of good job. You came in here and you rated us. Well played, fellas. So I just went back to bed for a couple hours because we had to get up early for the first mission. Now the way Realsim organizes their events is that during the night it's basically a free for all from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Anybody can do anything, go anywhere, shoot anybody. After that, there's little 2-hour sections where there's missions throughout the day, and during those missions, there's a limit of advance that the other team can't go past. So basically, that they're not going to come within this far of your base. So the first mission, there's supposed to be this armored convoy. It ended up being a Suburban, but whatever. And it's supposed to have injured people in it, and the Rosa forces were going to go to it and try to get their medics in there, and they were going to work on these people and then extract them from this convoy, which is a Suburban. We were supposed to stop them from doing that. So my partner and I kind of got to the location early, and basically what we had, there was a road kind of coming this way, and there was a fork in the road here, and here's where the Suburban was that the other team had to capture, and medic the guys back there and blah, blah, blah. And the enemy was coming from this direction. So theoretically, they were probably going to come down this road. So our team set up an ambush basically right more or less there. Okay, so there was kind of this wedge formation where theoretically the enemy was going to walk right into it. And we set up our sniper position right here. So theoretically we could observe the enemy team coming down the road and give the ambush element kind of a heads up, hey, here they come. So where we set up was kind of interesting because it was kind of there were these big trees, and then, you know, a couple overarching branches and lots of leaves, and we set up right in here between these trees. So I know it's a horrible drawing, but you get the idea. So I threw a bunch of leaves on my partner once he got set up. Then I threw a bunch of leaves on myself, and basically we were set up in a manner that I knew no one would walk over us. They might walk behind us, they might walk in front of us, but no one would. There's no reason anybody would walk between those logs. There was just too much crap in the way. So ultimately, what happened was the enemy team ended up coming through here. They walked literally right behind us, and I mean within feet of us. I immediately got on the radio when we heard them coming. I said, "Hey, the enemy's coming from the west, not down the road." The command element radioed back to me to try to get a little more confirmation, but by then I couldn't get on my radio because these guys were right on top of us, and I mean we're like within feet. So we just sat tight. I was pretty sure they weren't going to see us because we were pretty covered, and sure enough they didn't. They all went right past us, and as soon as they reached this line here, they engaged. And when everybody just opened up at the same time, it was pretty cool to hear. There was lots of LMGs, lots of grenade simulators and stuff going off. It was a lot of gunfire. So I hear all that going on. I'm like, okay, now it's probably a safe time for me to roll over. So I roll over, snap up my SR-25, and all I see is one lone squad leader sitting there on his radio, and he's about 30, 40 feet away. He's not very far away from my SR-25. I engage him, put him down real quick. He yells for a medic. Medic comes up. I engage the medic, put the medic down. So then I get up and I feel a little tug on my hood. I thought, well, surely somebody shot me, so I just called out the hit. My partner hops up and runs off to fight another day. So although there's a 5-minute bleed out, we are so far from the main element that I know no medic's coming for me. So I walk over to this squad leader and this medic that I shot, because it was just inside my med and I kind of felt bad. I just wanted to make sure they were okay. They were perfectly cool. Once again, I didn't meet a single salty player about anything all weekend. No bitching about the rules, nothing. So we get to talk, and they're like, who shot you? And I said, I don't know. I think a random BB came in and hit me in the head. They said, I don't think anybody from our team shot you, because they were all facing away from you. Turns out I called a hit from a branch. I think got caught on my hood, but is what it is. No worries. So we had set up a casualty collection point over here, basically a respawn. Had to be like within 100 yards of the fighting. And I ended up going back to it. I went back and forth. I went around here. And this firefight went on for like 2 hours. Okay, it was a 2-hour event, a 2-hour staged mission. And ultimately, like in the last 5 minutes, the enemy team was able to secure that and get their guys out of there. So they won the mission. But it was a real good back and forth, and honestly, it was a great time. One thing interesting is after the mission was over, our whole team gets together and we have an after-action review. Now, this is common in professional circles that we always do this at like SWAT training, but I had never seen them do this at any sort of Milsim op where there was actually a discussion of kind of like a school, and the cadre would sit there and go, well, what went well, what didn't go well, and just do a real thorough after-action review on the entire incident. It was kind of cool. So kind of something different that you're not going to see at a regular weekend Milsim event. So we head back to camp. I ultimately finally had a chance to set up a shelter with my tarp, got that set up, and then we have this other mission in the afternoon, this other 2-hour block, and here's where the wheels kind of start to fall off the op a little bit. It turns out most of the players there are really just there for the night missions. They're there for the run around with night vision and shoot the shit out of each other at night, which is honestly kind of the whole point. It's the highlight of the events. And the daytime missions are apparently this one got kind of blown off by everybody. So we go to the main town, which is usually called Colville, but for this event they called it Chinsky, whatever. And we went and set up on it, and the mission was there was supposed to be some VIP that we were supposed to capture or whatever. We spotted the VIP. We call on our team to go and go snag them up, and then instead of the 40-some players we were expecting, it turns out there's like 12. So we have like one squad. So the enemy shows up also with one squad. So instead of 90 players doing this mission, we have like 20, 25. It was kind of underwhelming. And I was kind of confused. I'm like, well, where the hell is everybody? Well, it turns out they were all most of the players that like doing the night missions, they were all back at their fob sleeping because they know their fob's not going to get attacked during that time because there's a limit of advance. So that mission ultimately was just kind of a clusterfuck. I don't really want to talk about it because it really wasn't that entertaining. It just didn't work out that well. And ultimately, our team lost, not really for a lack of effort, just for a lack of maybe lack of communication on our part. It was kind of unclear what the hell we were supposed to do there. Not anybody's fault but our own. And of the whole weekend, this was kind of the low point. There was kind of like what the hell is going on here moment. So let's just move on. Ultimately, we go back to camp. I eat an MRE, and there's supposed to be this evening 2-hour block mission from 4 to 6 p.m. Well, everything kind of started getting kicked back. Everything started kind of going late. And we showed up there at 4, me and my partner, but and the rest of our team showed up at about 4:30, 5 o'clock. But the other team didn't arrive for this evening mission around this bridge until kind of closer to 6 o'clock. So everything kind of got kicked back, and everything was kind of running late. I guess things that happen. People were starting to get tired, I suppose. So this mission, basically, there was this bridge here. It's called Pegasus Bridge, and there's a big road that kind of runs this way here, and there's a bunch of there's like a bunker here that overlooks that bridge, and we had a bunch of guys set up here, and there's kind of a path into the bridge here, almost like a peninsula here, and there's a path that you can come this way, and all this stuff over here is kind of a low-lying area that this bridge kind of goes over, almost like a ravine. So we were supposed to stop the other team from crossing this bridge, or we were supposed to blow up the bridge. We had guys that were supposed to set up explosives underneath the bridge and blow it up or something. Okay, I was kind of unclear on what exactly the mission was, and there was kind of a miscommunication. It was probably a command element issue, or maybe just the information not getting to us. I'm not sure. Ultimately, me and my partner set up over here on this side, and theoretically we're going to hold off the enemy team as long as we can, and then we're going to retreat. Well, he sets up in this tree, and I got a couple photos I'll throw in here. This was in an excellent position. He gets up about 15, 20 feet up in this tree, and it's a really good spot, and it gives him the ability to see down in this ravine all around here. So we're waiting forever, and the enemy team shows up. We're expecting them to come in here. What they do is they end up going through the ravine and trying to sneak up this way. But fortunately, we heard them coming. I was in a pretty good position, and as their heads were kind of popping up here, I just started picking them off with my SR-25. I racked up 6 kills here in pretty rapid fashion. My partner Jose starts engaging them from basically straight above him with his silverback SRS. He's shooting him in the plate carrier. You can hear it just whack, 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 and they're calling out all those hits. And ultimately, we push all those guys back. Another team starts coming in from here. My partner had since jumped down from the tree and retreated over here. I sat here. There were some buildings here you could kind of sit on. And I held off got another 6 or 7 kills. This is where I probably should have retreated with my partner, but I said, don't worry about it, I'll cover your retreat. And instead of following after him, I decided to hold my ground. I had a good piece of cover and plenty of lanes, and I was having a pretty good time getting lots of kills. I ended up getting ultimately 10 kills. It was pretty much the highlight of the weekend for me. I held this down for a really long time. So ultimately, our whole team ended up over here on this side of the ravine, and the enemy team was over here. So this went pretty long, this fight back and forth here. Like I said, it started late, so it got dark. I didn't bring my thermal scope with me. It was back at camp. There wasn't much I could do in the dark without a thermal scope. In fact, most of the people there didn't have any night vision at all. And this kind of ended in, I'm not going to say a draw, because I think ultimately the green team won. They were able to capture the bridge. It just went a really long time. And I'm not really clear on who won. I'm pretty sure it wasn't us that won that mission. So we go back to camp, and the weather's turning, it's starting to rain, and we're supposed to have this block of nighttime mission stuff where once again you're subject to attack at all times, or you can go attack them if you want to. But I'll be brutally honest, I was exhausted, and honestly looking around camp, so was everybody else. In fact, 2/3 of the guys packed up and left. Now, if you haven't figured it out yet, we were not doing well. We were not. I mean, we were fighting back. We were giving our all, but we were pretty consistently losing throughout the day. And that's airsoft. That's the airsoft game. I've been on both sides of that. I've gone to Milsim ops where just based on how the teams end up being stacked or not stacked or who has the better spawn position or whatever, you just end up either on a team that's doing well or a team that's not doing so well. And a lot of times there's nothing you can do about it. So I've been on both sides of this several times. I've been on the team that was just whipping ass, having a great time, and I've been on the team that is just getting their teeth kicked in. And it always kind of frustrates me at a Milsim event when people are losing and not doing well and they just pack up their shit and go home early. Because one, that makes the situation even worse for the people who are still there. And two, it makes it so the other team really doesn't have anybody to shoot at. Okay? So at this point, 2/3 of our guys with all of the night vision, all the really experienced guys, pack up their crap and go home. Now, I don't necessarily think it was because they were salty or upset. I think they were just tired and the weather kind of turned and they really weren't in the mood to do more sneaky night vision stuff that night. So they all just packed up and left for whatever reason, which is what it is. So we're stuck with like 15 people left. So theoretically, we could set up an observation post, but honestly, at that point, nobody even gave a shit. So we all just kind of went to bed. Sure enough, it rained, and sometime, in the morning, after all the rain, somebody came into our camp. They did a raid. I think it was only like 2 or 3 people. I heard somebody walk by my little shelter. 2 BB strikes hit me, hit my bivvy. No big deal. It sounded like it was from a pistol, and they didn't hit overly hard. I just remember saying, good job, I'm dead, good night. And I just went back to sleep. I didn't really give a shit at that point. And that was kind of the sentiment of the 15 guys that were left on our side is we were just kind of tired of the night games at that point. So following morning, Sunday morning, we're doing one last mission where basically we're going to go hold that town and defend that town from the enemy team. Unbeknownst to me, a lot of their experienced players that had all the night vision and all the cool stuff, they also left the night before. So basically it ended up being like 15 versus 15. And at this point, the event kind of went from this kind of highly organized, Milsim game to more of a casual, Saturday pickup game of airsoft. This is very common on the 3rd day of Milsim Ops. I see it all the time. It's actually more common than not. And that is fun too. So I was pretty tired. I was tired of being sneaky and tired of hiding and stuff. So I got rid of a lot of my sneaky gear, put on my comfortable clothes, and we went into the town and we set up and we were going to, hold off this enemy team as they're trying to come into the town. Once again, my partner, Jose, got up into a tree. Now, this particular tree he climbed up into was huge, and I'm going to throw some photos up in here. I told him not to do it. I told him it wasn't safe. I felt like I was his mother saying, hey, don't go up there. You're going to get yourself hurt. He was a good 35, 40 feet up in this tree. He was high enough that if he fell, he was definitely getting hurt. And then we kind of fell back further in the town once he was set up there. So everybody would kind of go past this tree and set up on positions where he basically had their 6 or had their flank while we were defending this town. It ended up working out really well for him. He told me he got like 40 or 50 kills from that tree. They never did spot him. They figured out he was over there somewhere, but they thought he was hiding on the ground. They never realized he was up in the tree. And to be brutally honest, I knew where he was, and I still couldn't even freaking see him. That whole skirmish holding the town was a lot of fun. It was a lot of good back and forth. I was holding up this one building that they call, I think they call it the jail, and I was on a 2nd floor, so I had an elevated position. I was shooting a lot of guys with my SR-25. It was a great time. At one point, I got killed finally by this guy who actually had a blank fire rifle, which I found was odd. And honestly, he just got to a good position, had the drop on me, popped up, and shoots a couple blank fire rounds at me. And I called it. I said, yeah, I'm hit. And he got a big grin on his face after I called that. So that guy got hit right after I got hit, and I bled out, and he was still down there. So ultimately, I walked out and went over to him, and I kind of started shooting the shit with him. I like to, when I'm after I bleed out, I like kind of meeting other people and meeting other players. And I was kind of curious, why this guy was running around with a blank fire rifle, and I started chatting with him. He was an active duty Marine, and he told me, I hate airsoft. The guy did not like airsoft, but he likes running around and doing these 40-hour milsims with his blank fire rifle. He thinks it's a great time. And that was kind of eye-opening for me because I realized, man, this is that's when it really kind of hit home to me that this is not like airsoft milsim. This 40-hour milsim stuff is a totally different sport. I think it's a sport all to itself. And more on that later in a video I'm doing in the future. But I did meet a lot of cool people, and this was one of the kind of the cooler guys I met. And that was kind of the event for me. The fight actually moved on to the north, to the airfield. They let all our guys kind of respawn and reset in this airfield, and then the other team, attacked. And once again, it was basically like a pickup day of airsoft at that point. So at that point, I hiked back to camp, packed up my ruck, hiked the 1.5 miles out, got in my truck, and went home. That was the end of Operation Underdog for me. So overall, it was a great event. I had a really good time. I met a lot of cool players on both sides. One thing I want to note here is that everybody was very mature and just really kind of cordial to each other. There was no airsoft drama, no bitching about rules, no bitching about hit calling, none of that like ugly attitude crap that kind of comes out at most Milsim ops as things start going sideways for one of the teams. Everybody stayed real positive all weekend, and it was cool. It was a nice change of pace from some of the kind of the uglier attitudes you can see at other Milsim games. One story I forgot to mention: on Saturday, I was running back to the respawn, and I ended up tripping and falling on some shit, and the muzzle of my SR-25 went in the dirt, and the stock popped me in the face and damn near knocked me out. Ended up having a pretty good size cut that's still healing. So all the photos from the op, about half of them, you're going to see me with a big gash on my face. That's I damn near knocked myself out. And the good news is plenty of people saw it, so there was no denying it. And they were like, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just fine. Just let me lay here for a minute and just endure this." It hurt like hell, but I got up and carried on. So that's why I got a big cut on my face. So that's all I got for the after action review for Operation Underdog. I know this is a long video. Those of you that are still here, thanks for hanging out. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, hit the bell. You guys know how YouTube works. Better yet, support my channel by buying some merchandise. You can go to dieshowtactical.com. That's my website. That's my company. I sell bungee slings there. I sell Gunfather Milsim patches, and all the money from that helps me make content for this channel. Thanks for watching.